With 2020 nearing its end, there's been definitely a lot of events that took place this past year, all part of the world stage leading us into a certain direction. And this is a topic I've covered many times in the past with the whole alien agenda that's being pushed upon us subconsciously when it comes to movies and also, of course, with the news itself. It's all propaganda. It doesn't matter if it's TV news or movies. They're basically being operated by the same entities. And there are those that are running this world from behind the scenes. That gets to this quote by former UK Secretary of State Dennis Healey, who stated, "World events do not occur by accident. They are made to happen, whether it is due to with national issues or commerce, and most of them are staged and managed by those who hold the purse strings." And definitely all the events that took place this past year, not only this past year, throughout history, is leading us all into a certain direction. That gets back to Donald Trump, of course, a major player on the world stage with this interview, which I'll show in a little bit, with his son Donald Jr., talking about the alleged UFO event in Roswell, New Mexico. And of course, we all know about the ridiculous Space Force and Donald Trump with the unveiling of this flag. That gets into this latest headline where it states, former Israeli space security chief claims aliens exist and U.S. has agreement with them. And within the article itself, it says the former Israeli government official says extraterrestrials have been in contact with Earth and that President Trump is aware of an agreement between the U.S. and the aliens. And this is coming from a supposed high-ranking former Israeli official who supposedly has a lot of credibility. So we can see where this is all adding up again with Space Force and Donald Trump, and why this propaganda was pushed months ago. And again, this latest headline, this is literally just 2 days ago. So it all makes sense why Trump on the world stage is pushing the nonsense again with Space Force. And this is the supposed, obviously, reason behind it, knowing about the supposed contact with aliens. And of course, the propaganda as well with asteroids, which I'll get into a little bit later with this video presentation. But first, let's get back to the whole topic of the alien agenda they're obviously pushing with this supposed declassified footage released by the military of these UFO encounters. Again, nothing more than propaganda, and that's all they push on the mainstream news. And let's get back to the foundation of all these lies, and that's definitely the Roswell incident, supposed incident, that has planted the seed in the minds of supposed UFOs and their existence. And of course, we all know the infamous footage that they showed of the supposed down UFO. Supposedly, the materials were indestructible, but there's pieces all over the place they supposedly recovered, which makes absolutely no sense. And this is definitely a Masonic deception, which I've covered again many times, the Masonic aspect with all the signs and symbols. And of course, with the supposed downing of the supposed UFO in Roswell. Roswell just happens to be on the 33rd parallel. And that brings me back to this logo, which I showed many times, with the 33rd degree when it comes to the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, the highest degree in the Scottish Rite. And that gets into, again, more signs and symbols with another supposed UFO event and UFO sighting over Phoenix, Arizona. Of course, the Phoenix, as you can see here, as displayed, and also just so happens to be on the 33rd parallel. And just take a look here. Again, the signs and symbols right in plain sight. And I should mention before I even go in that direction, that supposedly went down in 1997, March 13th. March being the third month of the year, so you get your 313. And also, again, with the signs and symbols here, you just take a look here. What does this look like? They call it a V-shaped flying object over Arizona. But what it comes down to is the Masonic square. You can see the compass here. And another image of the Masonic square. Definitely, they put their signs and symbols in plain sight. Not only with the numbers, as in the number 33 with these events, it's clear as day that they put, again, their signs and symbols for all to see. But very few understand what has taken place. Of course, Freemasonry is not taught in the public school system. So these type of things, these signs and symbols, the numbers that are presented with my presentation, they'll go over the majority of people's heads that do not understand this grand deception that's taking place on the world stage. And that gets into the characters involved with the deception that we see spotlighted in the mainstream media. And definitely one of those characters is Bob Lazar, of course, famous for pushing the whole alien agenda. As you can see here, doing the Masonic hand sign, just like in this Illuminati card game released in 1995, with it stating Deep Agent, doing the identical Illuminati hand sign in plain sight. So definitely, again, signs and symbols rule this world. And if you can read the signs, you can see the deception. And obviously anybody that gets propped up, that's pushed on the mainstream media, History Channel, Discovery Channel, they are part of the propaganda, part of the deception. And definitely another character on the world stage was Stanton Friedman, very well known, very famous for pushing the whole idea of aliens, UFOs, this whole idea of deep space. And of course, you have the globe propaganda. You have the bookshelf in the back with full of books. And this supposedly equates someone that's credible, they're intelligent, someone you should listen to. Again, this whole photo is nothing but propaganda. Again, a person definitely embedded with the government, and that gets into what is happening today with this book by Stanton Friedman, and I'll just call it Crash at the Crown. And again, this is the propaganda being pushed today, and it matches up with the whole Masonic logo with the 33, and there is the crown, which is basically identical to, again, what is presented here. Okay, and here's just more of the same with Stanton Friedman and more covers. This has been re-released over the years. And again, the same title, just different cover. And again, the whole Masonic concept of the crown and Roswell. Definitely in plain sight. And of course, the crown, I'll call it, is 33 in gematria. And another aspect of the crown in this city just south of Los Angeles, as you can see, the Crown, California. And this is from History Channel. Just take a quick look. As you can see, this individual talking about UFOs in the Crown, California location. And they show the map here. And one thing I want to point out is this individual talking about it. And just back up. I'm going to get a little bit of a close-up. And you see the devil. And you see the number 33. The end of course, 533. You get your 33. And it just so happens in numerology, the devil is 33. So just like Bob Lazar and Stanton Friedman, no different with this individual. Definitely part of the world stage, part of the propaganda being pushed by the mainstream media and those that control every aspect of television programming. Now that gets into the topic of this interview I covered several times in the past with Dr. Carol Rosin, an aerospace executive, Fairchild Industries, who worked closely with the so-called father of NASA, and that is Wernher von Braun, as you see here. You can see him here also, of course, with Kennedy, and also with this image with Kennedy as well, and well known for his tombstone, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. And this is definitely truth in plain sight, which I cover obviously extensively on my channel. And basically, for those that don't know, the firmament in Bible cosmology is the structure above the atmosphere conceived as a vast solid dome. And the ones that own and control YouTube is Google. And definitely YouTube/Google knows the earth is flat. Those at the very top that are basically behind these Google Earth days. All these are flat earth, basically in plain sight for all to see. And the masses have no idea what they're looking at. But again, when it comes to the world structure, this world system controlled by Masons. And they put, again, their signs and symbols in plain sight with Gmail, and you see the Masonic M, just like on the apron. It's all for those that have eyes to see, to understand. And that gets into these very famous quotes by Manly P. Hall, very famous Freemason. It is said that wisdom lies in not seeing things, but in seeing through things. And this quote also by Manly P. Hall, when the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, a great veil will fall from the eyes of men. And that gets back to the symbolism. They're not going to tell you with words that the earth is flat, but they're going to show you with signs and symbols. They're going to tell you who they are through signs and symbols. And again, definitely when it comes to these supposed UFO events throughout history, the signs and symbols, again with the Phoenix Lights, which is basically, again, the square, part of the square and compass. As you can clearly see here, the square and the compass. And getting back to the event in Roswell, the site of the supposed UFO event on the third parallel. So it's very clear and very, very obvious for those that have eyes to see. And that gets back to, which I showed earlier, Dr. Carol Rosin. And like I said many times in the past, nothing's hidden in this world. They must tell us what they're going to do before they do it. Literally, we're living in a scripted reality. And again, they must tell us through predictive programming, also known as revelation of the method, basically their game plan, what's going to happen before it happens. And I'm going to play this interview clip from several years ago, again with Dr. Carol Rosin.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Werner von Braun in early 74 in order to tell me about the game that was being played. That game being the effort to weaponize space, to control the Earth from space and space itself. The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie.
And all of it's a lie. And you just heard her mention as well, not only the alien aspect, but the propaganda as well when it came to these so-called asteroids that will supposedly hit Earth, mentioned as well as nothing more than a lie, nothing more than propaganda to go along with the whole lie of the alien agenda. And that gets back to this very famous video from Ronald Reagan, former president, back in the 80s. Let's take a listen to what is said here. Definitely an actor in the world stage, like all presidents, part of this grand deception. Let's take a listen to what is said here.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
And before even moving forward, this propaganda being pushed again, this idea of aliens from other worlds, I should mention, you see here above Reagan, you see here the UN logo, which is the flat earth model, which many know about the flat earth truth. Literally, they are identical. And also, there are 33 segments in the UN logo. And I should mention as well the laurel wreath that surrounds the flat earth model. This represents victory. The laurel wreath once again. And I find it very interesting what I said, again, when it comes to Ronald Reagan. And literally, 20, 30 years later, You have Bill Clinton appear on a late night talk show, literally verbatim, the propaganda that Reagan was pushing is being pushed again. Literally the same words are being spoken at a certain aspect during this late night show. And take a listen to what Bill Clinton says here. The same propaganda definitely being pushed on the masses. And also Bill Clinton, of course, being a Democrat. You have Ronald Reagan, of course, being a Republican. They're pushing the same agenda. They're both on the same side, the same team. It's very clear what's happening here, where there's no left or right, and you have only this one entity, and it's like a two-headed snake all working together, part of the grand deception once again. Let's take a listen once again to Bill Clinton during this late night show.
When the Roswell thing came up, I knew we'd get, gazillions of letters. So I had all the Roswell papers reviewed, everything.
If you saw that there were aliens there, would you tell us?
Yeah.
You would?
I would. Well, I think, look, what do we know? We know now we live in an ever-expanding universe. We know that there are billions of stars and planets literally out there, and the universe is getting bigger. We know from our fancy telescopes that just in the last 2 years, more than 20 planets have been identified outside our solar system that seem to be far enough away from their suns and dense enough that they might be able to support some form of life. So it makes it increasingly less likely that we're alone.
Oh, you're trying to give me a hint that there are aliens.
No, I'm trying to tell you I don't know.
Oh.
But if we were visited someday, I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that it's not like Independence Day.
Yeah, right.
That it's a conflict.
Well, now we have friendly
Maybe the
aliens.
only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours.
And that gets to George Bush, another Republican just like Ronald Reagan, pushing the same agenda on late night TV. And this is another aspect I need to point out. Not only do they push propaganda on the news networks, they also push it, obviously, in late night TV. All of TV. Every aspect of television is programming, and the best way to push a propaganda is through entertainment. It sinks into the subconscious, and the public does not realize what is happening. Let's get right to this clip with, again, George Bush speaking on UFO aliens. Let's take a listen.
I think it's very important to me and very important to the country. When you were in office, and I don't know when this happened or if it happened, did you go through the secret files, the UFO documents? Because if I was president, that'd be the first thing I did.
You know, it's funny. My daughters asked the very same question.
They did?
Yeah.
Would you be allowed to tell your daughters what was in those files?
No.
You would not?
No.
Now that you're out of office, you can do anything you want, right?
True. Yeah. But I'm not telling you.
And again, this whole idea of UFOs being pushed, aliens being pushed, and that gets us back to the very start of this presentation when it comes to Donald Trump being interviewed by his own son, Donald Jr., regarding Roswell. Let's take a listen to what is said here. And again, I want to point out, I'm pointing out the obvious. All these presidents are talking about so-called aliens, UFOs. This agenda is very clear, very transparent. Let's get right to the clip.
Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens? Because this is the only thing I really want to know. I want to know what's going on. Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there?
So many people ask me that question.
I know, it sounds almost ridiculous, but it's actually the real question I want to know.
It sounds like a cute question, but it's actually, there are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
So you're saying you may declassify?
Oh.
You'll take it?
Well, I'll have to think about that one.
So the agenda is very clear. And I should also mention back in 1973, with Jimmy Carter filing a so-called sighting of a UFO, and they're all directed to partake in this grand deception, and definitely that's where all it's leading. And the New World Order agenda is being pushed with the whole alien angle, the whole UFO deception is very clear. And this is in the cards. It's just a matter of time, I believe, before this event happens. To me, it's almost too obvious. But again, the agenda is very clear, very apparent, with all these presidents talking about UFOs, aliens, and all their, basically, all their hired goons, as you can see here, part of this New World Order agenda.